Our paper concerns the dynamics of persuasion, which simply means how persuasion changes over time in response to organ donation messages. This is in some senses a replication study. In the prior study, which was part of my dissertation, I created a method for predicting individuals' responses to anti-marijuana messages over time. We use the same methods as the prior study here to predict real-time responses to pro-organ donation messages. In typical campaign and persuasion research, participants are given a pretest, shown a persuasive stimulus, and then given a post-test. Any changes from pre to post are assumed to be the result of the message. This makes things messy for the campaign researcher, however. Either your message must involve very simple and small manipulations, or you have so much information in the stimulus that it becomes difficult to disentangle just what aspects of the message resulted in the outcomes you observe. Most people have seen continuous response measurement, or CRM, at least during the presidential election years in the United States. In my studies, participants view messages online, accompanied by a slider with endpoints that are labeled. In this case, from 100% convincing to 100% unconvincing. For individual participants, this results in data that include a lot of plateaus. Participants pay attention to the message and move every once in a while when they see or hear something that causes them to report changes in attitude. When we average this across participants, we get the appearance of smoother curves. I mentioned that this method involves predicting individuals' responses over time. In order to build these models, we need a few things. First, we need the pieces of information that the individual will be exposed to during the message. This can include a number of audiovisual message features, but for this study it is just arguments. We need to know when they occur in the message and have some estimate for their values, or how much they would cause someone to change his or her attitude. We used a separate sample to rate 53 arguments. Based on that data, we created a multi-level regression equation that estimates argument strength individually based on individual characteristics. We included sensation seeking, as well as more organ donation specific characteristics, such as religiosity and prior attitude. Lastly, in order to know how multiple pieces of information combine together over time to form a final attitude, we need to account for the effects of time and information order. That is, does the order of the arguments matter? Theory, as well as the results of the prior study, suggests that order does matter for complex messages with multiple pieces of information. Participants in our study rated a testimonial consisting of 12 weak and 12 strong arguments organized into blocks. Half saw the weak block first, followed by the strong, and the other half saw strong followed by weak. Messages were audio recorded and also presented with text on a black background. Participants continuously rated their responses while viewing the message. We then constructed individualized argument strength values and integrated time series models for each participant. The following slides show average predictions for each condition. If there are no order effects, and people just basically add or subtract a little bit based solely on the strength of the current argument, we would expect an average time series like this. The strong-weak condition would go up steeply, then shallow, while the weak-strong is the same except for the order. Note that both end on the same value. With a primacy effect, the first information you receive matters the most. We tested a couple different primacy effects from the cognitive psychology literature. Both predict that the strong-weak will end much higher than the weak-strong, since the first information matters the most. I mentioned that a past theory predicts that order matters for complex messages. Specifically, for messages with more than a couple, 3 pieces of information, especially when evaluated constantly, Hogarth and Einhorn's belief adjustment model predicts a recency effect like the one pictured here. Notice that unlike before, the weak-strong condition is predicted to end higher because here the most recent information received matters the most. We tested these models using multi-level modeling, and indeed the recency model is the best fit, which you can see with your eyeballs just by looking at the graphs of simulated versus actual data, but it is always nice to have the stats work out too. We can draw some practical conclusions from this research. Most obviously, there is no such thing as a strong argument. The full analyses for this work involve a lot of interactions between message features and individual characteristics, meaning that arguments that are strong on average may be weak or even boomerang in some audience segments. Perhaps most salient to what I presented here is that practitioners should make sure to end with their strongest arguments. Thank you for your attention. Please feel free to email me if you have questions about this research.